Hi everyone, welcome to Happy Movie.
Today, let's watch a science fiction horror film, Daybreakers. In the future, vampires rule the world, and humans are kept captive,
Being harvested to produce blood. Unlike other vampire movies, the vampires even have more advanced technology.
in the not-too-distant future.
A plague caused by vampire bats.
Turns most humans into vampires, granting them immortality with no further physical changes. Some of them can't accept of having an eternal childlike body and choose to turn to ash in the sunlight.
But most see becoming a vampire as a gift, a form of evolution that will continue to advance civilization. But most humans are captured and harvested in laboratory farms, becoming machines for blood production.
Since vampires don't have a natural supply of human blood, they slowly degenerate into psychotic, bat-like subsiders.
But after decades of consumption,
The human population is less than 5%.
vampires face an unprecedented food crisis. Charles, the CEO of the blood supply company Bromley Marks,
Constantly pressures Edward, the head hematologist for Bromley Marks,
to quickly develop and launch a human blood substitute. So, Edward skips animal testing and directly tests their research on a vampire with his assistant Christopher.
The experiment fails,
Edward is deeply disappointed.
because he has always wanted to use a blood substitute to save human lives and help them escape the fate of being harvested. On his way home, Edward realizes he's started to mutate due to prolonged abstinence from human blood. A moment of distraction leads to a car accident with another vehicle.
But to Edward's surprise, the occupants of the other car are humans,
Seeing the police approaching, Edward quickly hides them in his car.
allowing them to escape unharmed. Later, Edward returns home, and his brother Frankie brings him human blood to celebrate his 10th 35th birthday.
But Edward insists on not consuming human blood, even pouring it into the sink. This angers Frankie.
He immediately prepares to leave, but a subsider suddenly appeared.
Fortunately, Frankie is a soldier and he uses a dagger to successfully deal with the subsiders. Afterwards, Edward discovers that this subsider was actually the neighbor's gardener. He had clearly consumed his own blood, which caused his rapid mutation. The next day, Edward finds the back door triggering an alarm. He hurries to check.
Only to discover that it's Audrey, whom he saved a few days ago. Audrey has come seeking Edward's help, because she knows Edward is an expert on blood. Audrey gives him a map.
Hoping he'll go to the specified location. After careful consideration, Edward decides to drive to the designated location with his modified car, allowing him to travel during the day. The person Edward meets is named Elvis.
He tells Edward that he used to be a vampire, but has now turned back into a human.
This astonishes Edward.
Before he can inquire about the reasons,
Frankie appears, holding Audrey hostage. An armored vehicle from the vampire army arrives. Elvis can only knock out Frankie.
and the three escape in a car. After an intense chase, they successfully evade capture. Later, Elvis takes Edward to a riverbank.
And begins to recount his miraculous experience of turning from a vampire to a human.
It turns out that when Elvis was still a vampire,
He used to drive furious during the day.
because there were no police to stop him, he enjoyed the feeling of speeding down the road. But one day, he crashed through a protective barrier and was sent flying. He was instantly caught by the sun, burned intensely, and fell into the water.
At that moment, his heart regained vitality after stopped beating for 9 years. He bathed in the sunlight once again.
Elvis brings Edward here to find the reasons behind to turn vampires back into humans.
Afterward, Elvis takes Edward to the survivors' base of humans. There, Edward quickly starts his research.
But after testing, he finds that vampire blood does not change after exposure to ultraviolet light.
Edward decides to mimic Elvis's experience.
By exposing himself to the sun to turn back into a human. Then they start modifying a wine fermentation tank,
Using its ceiling and exhaust fan to ensure Edward's safety. On the other side, the vampire world is on the brink of collapse due to blood shortages.
More and more vampires mutate into subsiders by feeding on the blood of their kind. Charles soon finds Frankie and tells him that his brother's research is crucial for the vampire's future.
He hopes Frankie can find Edward and also gives him a special task.
Is to find her long-lost daughter, Allison.
At this moment, Allison is on her way to the survivors' base.
The group is soon attacked by the vampire army led by Frankie, although humans resist desperately.
The well-equipped and well-trained vampire army quickly captures them all. The survivors' base is exposed, and the humans there immediately start moving. However, Edward refuses to leave. He wants to complete the experiment here. Elvis and Audrey choose to stay with him in the end.
Although the testing process is painful, Edward must endure the scorching sun repeatedly. It's all worth it. After numerous attempts, Edward's dormant soul is finally awakened.
His heart starts beating again.
Meanwhile, the vampire army has tracked them down. Luckily, the three manage to hide in a wine barrel and escape.
At the same time, Charles finally meets his daughter, Allison.
But Allison strongly resists her father. 10 years ago, Charles had cancer. Becoming a vampire gave him a new life and immortality.
Charles sees it as a miracle, but Allison sees it as a plague. She'd rather die than become a vampire.
Charles let Frankie bite Allison. He wanted his daughter to become vampire and enjoy how great it is.
But Charles underestimated Allison's determination.
She soon began to consume her own blood.
This slowly mutated her into subsiders.
Eventually, Charles had to endure.
dragging Ellison with other subsiders into the light of the sun. While Frankie watched Ellison turn to ashes, endless remorse rose in his heart. Meanwhile, Edward is feeling the sunlight, enjoyed it greatly. This was the first time in years that he basked in the sunlight.
Then the three went to another hiding place for humans together.
But when they arrived, only to find that they were under attack by a vampire army. Everyone is killed.
Audrey was deeply saddened and thought everything was ruined.
While Edward felt there was still hope,
He found his former assistant, Christopher.
hoping to get his help.
But Christopher betrayed him. Audrey was unfortunate to be captured. Only Edward and Elvis successfully escaped.
Just when they thought they had found a safe place,
Subsiders suddenly appeared.
fortunately, Frankie arrived in time.
Edward was saved from danger. Frankie was amazed that Edward had turned human again.
Edward asked Frankie to help rescuing Audrey.
After considering, Frankie agreed. However, Frankie hadn't fed on blood for a long time, couldn't resist and bit Elvis. Edward found out Frankie underwent a change after sucking Elvis's blood.
So he went alone to Charles's office and told Charles.
As long as he released Audrey, he would tell him how to restore the human blood supply.
But what Edward didn't expect was his assistant
Christopher had completed the research days ago. Blood substitutes were already in production. That's why Christopher chose to betray Edward. Edward brought up Alison, Charles's daughter, to angering Charles. He angrily bit Edward. But Charles soon discovered something unusual.
he was slowly turning back into a human.
It turns out Elvis and Edward had become immune to the virus.
Anyone consumed their blood will transform back to human. Then Edward tied Charles in the elevator. The vampire soldiers who arrived, unable to endure the hunger, and bit Charles into pieces. On the other side, Frankie successfully rescued Edward and Audrey.
But as they were about to leave,
A large number of soldiers had already arrived. Frankie had to let Edward and Audrey leave quickly. He sacrificed himself to become food for the vampire soldiers, and these soldiers who sucked Frankie's blood.
they slowly turned back into humans and became the food for next batch of vampires.
In the end, only a few soldiers survived as human.
At this critical moment,
Christopher shot and killed all the soldiers.
he couldn't let them become the antidote. He couldn't let them take away his achievement. Elvis shot Christopher with an arrow at a crucial moment, saving the others.
At this moment, the morning light slowly shone into the building. They suddenly bathed in the dawn of hope. The crisis of human extinction was finally lifted. The three drove towards the sun, heading for the brightness and hope of humanity. Thank you for watching Happy Movie. Like and subscribe if you like.